Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy to be back with another video full of Christmas cards. I'm going to be making 4 Christmas cards with 1 hot foil plate today. I'm going to step it up a little bit for 3 of the cards, and then the fourth one is going to be a bonus card with a different way to get a similar look. So let's get right into it. I'm going to be using the De-Light-Ful Christmas hot foil plate from Spellbinders. This is from the De-Light-Ful Christmas collection by Yana, which is a stunning collection. I'll leave the entire collection link below as well if you're interested in seeing the rest of the products. There are tons of different ones. I am just using this 1 hot foil plate today, and I am going to start out by foiling this onto 4 different card panels. I cut my panels down to A2 size and I trimmed my foil down, I adhered it down with some washi tape, and then I'm putting that plate on top. I'm foiling 2 of the cards in silver Glimmer hot foil from Spellbinders and 2 other ones in gold Glimmer hot foil. So pretty basic, but we're going to add a ton of color to these cards as well. Once all of the foil plates, that is the string of lights and the sentiment that is included in the set, are adhered down, I am going to turn that over so the plates are touching the glimmer system and let that heat up before I put it through my die cutting machine. And this is the result. I love this. It's such a fun design, and the idea of it is it comes with a bunch of dies, one that has all of the light bulbs. So you adhere those down on the foiled light bulbs to add some color. And then you also have a die to cut out those little things that the bulbs screw into. I don't know what they're called, but yeah, I cut those out of silver and gold to match the foils. Now to step this up a little bit, for my white panel, I am going to do some really simple ink blending to add a little bit of light around the light bulbs. I'm doing this with a teeny tiny blending brush from Pinkfresh Studio. Now I will leave a link to the Pinkfresh Studio ones, and I'll try to find an alternative as well, but know that tons of companies have teeny tiny blending brushes these days, so just pick one that suits you best. There are no functional differences between them, so yeah. I also chose some very soft colored inks from Concord and 9th, and I'm very softly blending them also. So these are not super bright colors on the page. I don't want them to be. I want them to be light and cheerful, and the light bulbs themselves are going to be a little bit darker. As usual, I'm using my Inkstand Mini to keep the ink cubes in place. I think it's a game changer, and I'll always keep mentioning it when I'm doing ink blending. It's linked down below as well. It's a very handy tool. Now this ink blending is super quick because it's just tiny little spots. So once that's done, I can adhere this panel down with Barely Art Precision Craft glue onto my top folding white note card. You can see I have cut a bunch of light bulbs out already from different colors of cardstock. Spoiler alert, they're the same colors that I used for my ink blending. So I just cut out the same colors for each of the cards. That makes it really simple to mass produce this design. I know we all need a ton of Christmas cards, and this is a design. It looks a little bit finicky because you have a ton of tiny little pieces to adhere down, but when you use a jewel picker like I am doing right here, it's really easy and it goes pretty quickly. I think just adhering the light bulbs down took me 5 minutes per card. So that's pretty quickly. I think I spent 20 minutes preparing for this. So cutting my card panels, foiling my design on my card panels, and die cutting all the tiny pieces. 20 minutes for 4 cards. And putting everything together, like I said, was pretty quick. I did 4 cards in under an hour, a little under an hour with all the ink blending. You'll see that I'll do a little bit more ink blending on the other cards. So this is very, very quick. I think this is an amazing design to mass produce for your Christmas cards. I'm adding a little bit of detail with a white jelly roll from Sakura, and I just add a little highlight to each light bulb. Now to do a similar look on a darker card panel, it was a little tricky to find something that worked. I first tried this with white pigment ink and I didn't like the look. Now the idea was to add a white base around the light bulbs where I wanted that shine of light to be, and then ink blend over top of that so I could still have that little pop of color on a dark background. But the white pigment ink didn't really do much. I didn't think it was opaque enough to really show the colors of the ink on top of it. So instead I went for some acrylic paint. Now I did water it down, and for this first card I didn't water it down enough. So for my second card you'll see me add a little bit more water, and that will give me a more natural look, I think. I used a finger dauber to pick up some of the acrylic paint and very, very lightly dab it over the light bulbs. I did heat set this just to make sure it was completely dry before I went in with my dye inks. Now a quick thing to note is that this acrylic paint will absolutely cover your foil. So dye ink will glide over the foil and you will see the foil design through it. But if you have some white acrylic paint over your hot foil string of the lights, that string will be covered and you will have the light, the dye ink that you blend on top of it, go over the string. I don't mind that look, but if you do, you might want to try pigment ink. Maybe that works a little better for you and that won't cover your hot foil. You can also try this with Distress Oxide inks or other pigment inks. You won't get a very true color over dark cardstock, not as true as you do this way, but it's worth a try, and maybe that works better for you than it did for me. So again, I used those teeny tiny blending brushes, and I did use darker inks this time. They don't look darker on the cardstock, but acrylic paint is an acrylic. So once it's dry, it's a non-porous surface. So the ink doesn't really stick to it or sink into it. It will dry on top of it eventually, but it won't be as dark as it would be if you blended it on paper. So just keep that in mind. I went one shade darker for my inks on the acrylic paint than I did on the white card that I made the first time around. Now to take this hot foil plate one step further, I am going to add a dimensional look to the background. Now this isn't going to make a lot of sense physics-wise, but I am going to make the edges of the card panel darker as if the light doesn't reach that far. Obviously there are lights around the edges, so again, physics-wise this doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think it looks a lot better this way. It gives your card a little bit more of a focal point in the center, also where your sentiment is, depending on how far you blend the ink. But the way I did this is I just started with a light colored cardstock. This is Harbor from Concord 9th, and then I took some darker blue inks to blend around the edges. I built that up a little bit. I could have gone a little bit darker as well. Usually I grab some black pigment ink if I really want to darken up the edges, but I didn't want to make it too much. I thought the lights would look a little bit better if I didn't go too dark around the edges. So again, I am watering that acrylic paint down a little bit further so it's not as opaque. This will make it look a little bit more natural once it goes on the page. So I'm taking that same finger dauber again, and I'm very lightly tapping it over top of the foiled light bulbs. Now you want to go very light-handed with the white acrylic paint, because if you don't, you'll just get a full solid circle of light, and that doesn't really look right. So if you go very lightly, you'll have some speckles around the edges where the light sort of fades, and just I think that looks beautiful. So just try it out on a scrap piece of cardstock before you do your full panel, just to get used to the feeling of very lightly dabbing on acrylic paint. It also depends on the consistency of your acrylic paint. As I said, I watered that second batch down a little bit further, and I did have to go even more light-handed that way, so just try it out with your acrylic paint. I know the Tim Holtz paints are also, or the Ranger paints are also very liquid, so you might have a different result with those. You might struggle a little bit to get a super light hand with those, so just try it out before you do it on your card. Once again, I blended those dye inks on top, and once that's done, I can again adhere those tiny little light bulbs. I haven't shown a lot of that process, but it's just because it's always the same thing. Now, it is very handy if you're a little bit quicker with the jewel picker. You can put glue on all of the light bulbs at once and then just adhere them down all at once. That's just going to speed up the process a little bit more. Now, if ink blending isn't your favorite thing in the world, or if you don't have teeny tiny ink blending brushes, I will have a bonus card right after this one to show you a different way to achieve this look as well. It might not work out on a darker background, but maybe you'll find a way anyway. So I'm just going to finish off these lights. Again, I am adhering down those little screw-in pieces from silver cardstock on top of the light bulbs. And once that's done, I am again adding detail with a white gel pen. I'm adding some highlights to the light bulbs, as well as adding a couple of white dots in the ink blended area. I just thought that looked cool. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I like the little highlight there. I like the look of it. You could also add some glitter to these light bulbs. That would look really fun too, just with a glitter brush pen. That would be fun. Now, for the fourth bonus card, I am going to work on white cardstock again. This is Canson XL watercolor 300 GSM cardstock. And it foils beautifully, by the way. Watercolor cardstock is perfect for foiling. And I foiled the design on there, and now I am just painting around the light bulbs. I am adding some clean water first and then dropping in the paint, a very light amount. I don't want my colors to be too dark for this. And then I'm just playing around with this. I really like this look. It's a little different than the ink blending. It looks a little bit more playful. And I really love it. It's just a fun, different look. And I can imagine that people like to paint. Some people like to paint a little bit more than they like to ink blend. So if you want to make a ton of these cards, just do what you love and go for watercolor if that is what you like to do. Once again, I am finishing this off by adhering down all of the light bulbs. It's really fun to play around with this. It's so relaxing for me to adhere these tiny pieces with a jewel picker. It's just perfect for my chill time. So these are all the cards I made. In total, I spent about 1 hour and 15 minutes on these. If you make more of these together, you won't add that much more time. And if you only stick to one design, like the white cardstock, that will definitely speed things up as well. But if you just do the dark cardstock too, it won't add that much time to add the acrylic paint first. I hope you like these cards and I hope you liked the video. I hope it gave you some ideas for this delightful Christmas hot foil plate from Spellbinders. I always love the clever hot foil plates that, or the clever products that Yana Smakula comes up with. This definitely has to be one of my favorites. But yeah, she also has gorgeous flower dyes. I highly recommend you check out her collections on the Spellbinders website. Again, all of the products I used today will be linked in the description below, along with the entire Delightful Christmas collection from Yana Smakula, because she's one of my favorite designers for Spellbinders. I always love when she comes out with a collection. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have some thoughts or questions about it, leave them in the comments below. I'll definitely get back to you soon. If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up on the video as well. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.